we take care of everybody else and we kind of push our stuff to the back burner. It's like, I'll get to that when I can get to it. But you can't be your best self if your glass is half empty or just completely depleted.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's Thursday night. We got DeChristia here. DeChristia wants to discuss Black women's health and advocating for improved Black women's health and some other issues, I'm sure, and anything else she wants to get into. So, DeChristia, welcome to the show. What's up with you?
Thank you. So happy to be here and to definitely talk about this topic. It's one that's near and dear to me. I'll share my story with you all in a moment, but it's needed. It's definitely needed. We need to have these conversations.
Facts. So, your story. We here for it. What's the story?
I got a question for you first, though. So I always see you with these shirts.
However, hold on. Typically, I let my guests ask me a question at the end. However, I'll allow.
You just told us to be our authentic selves.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
So I want to know, because you have, I see you in these different tuxedo style T-shirts all the time. I wanted to know what was the story behind that.
So it's kind of like two stories tied into one. My oldest daughter, Jalen, bought me just a regular black and white one for my birthday or Christmas one year. And I liked it. So I started, I wear it, with my other shirts or whatever. Mm-hmm. But as a kid, and even now, I hate dressing up. Like, I hate putting on a suit. I hate wearing a tuxedo. I don't like wearing dress clothes. So it's kind of like it's like my own little way of dressing up, but not really dressing up.
Yeah, you get to be comfortable.
Yeah, I get to be comfortable, you know what I'm saying? So, like, when I was a kid, they would make us go to church. I'd be like, man, I put on this shirt, then the necktie be all up in your neck and all that. So, but now,
so my kids, yeah, you got it all there. You got the whole package going on. That's so interesting that you say that. So I have an 18-year-old son and an 8-year-old son. They love to dress up. But I also think that they love it because they don't do it as often, maybe once a week for, religious activities. But other than that, they're not really wearing suits all the time. So I'm thinking once they get older and they have to wear them for work and other things like that, they're probably going to feel exactly the same way you feel.
Maybe. I mean, it is nice when you wear it, when you're out and about and people are like, hey, you look nice. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, but it's not enough to make me want to wear it on a regular basis.
I get it. It's not comfortable.
Uniform.
I get it. Just definitely not comfortable for you. And the shoes, absolutely not comfortable.
I found some comfortable shoes though. You know what I'm saying?
Nice.
Found some comfortable shoes. I'm like, oh, I could rock with these, but it's just, I think it's the heaviness of the suit jacket and then the tie being up in your neck. I'm just kind of like, man, I like to be able to move.
All right. I get it. So I will say, I just did a photo shoot this weekend with my boys. This was the first one that we've done with all three of us in it. Mm-hmm. And men's clothing for things like that are not cheap. Definitely expensive when you're looking at the whole suit combination together, especially that jacket.
Yeah. It's costly. It's costly to look good. It costs money to look good.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So now we got that out the way. What's the story? Why are we discussing Black women's health other than you being a Black woman?
So, first off, like I just stated, I have two sons. One's 18. He's graduating this year, going to prom tomorrow. So a lot of running around this week. And my youngest son is 8. He'll be 9 in May. My weight has been consistent for the majority of my life. After I had him, things started to fluctuate a bit. And I was like, okay, this, after you go through that nursing period, you expect some things to change a little bit, but they changed dramatically. I went from weighing about 135 to 174. And couldn't figure out what was going on. Didn't matter what I changed. If I exercised more, if I ate better, the weight was not budging. And if it did, it only went down by a couple of pounds. So right after he was born. So maybe about a year and a half after he was born, I started going to doctors, just trying to understand what was going on with my body, trying to figure out, am I doing the right things? Has something changed since I had him? Because I was just not used to the fluctuation. I know some people have dealt with that all their lives, but for me, this was a big sign like, hey, something is just not right. And I went through a series of different doctors, and I tried picking Black female doctors because I thought that they would relate to what I was going through or my specific bodily issues. Even local doctors who maybe knew a little bit more about the region and what to expect. And it was a long journey. So it's been about 7 years before I could get an actual diagnosis. So in October, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's hypothyroiditis. So some people call it hypothyroidism, but it's hyperthyroiditis. So if you are not aware, so you know how we eat real good and we be like, oh, I got the itis. In medical terms, anything that ends with itis, you do not want it.
Not good.
You want to give it back.
Right.
Yeah, so that's pretty much how it started. And a lot of it was just me pushing forward to continue, even through the frustration and trying cleanses and diets and just changing my eating habits altogether. Going to different doctors and just not getting any results, even dealing with doctors who were kind of like, just really didn't want to hear what I had to say. I would tell them, hey, the same issue is here from the last time I was here. And then when they would run tests and things like that, I felt like they were doing it just to appease me, just to be like, okay, I'm showing you it's nothing here. So I'm like, okay, well, what's the next step? Because we ruled that out. So now let's go to the next thing. And it was kind of like pulling teeth. So I think that that's super important for women not to become discouraged and to keep looking out for their own health. You have to advocate for yourself. Being a woman and being a mom, we take care of everybody else and we kind of push our stuff to the back burner. It's like, I'll get to that when I can get to it. But you can't be your best self if your glass is half empty or just completely depleted.
Facts. I'm with it. So have you found the doctor that you're comfortable with that's helping you through it now, or are you still in that searching phase?
No, absolutely. And the crazy thing is this is not his specialty. And he was able to determine what I had before I even saw him. So just a little bit about that. So I was getting blood work done. I was getting all of the regular tests. So you all know with Hashimoto's, it is an autoimmune disease. So it's very different than just having a thyroid problem. Men and women both have thyroids, right? So that regulates your hormones in your body, and it is essential to your liver, your kidney, and a bunch of other functions. So when I was going through this process, I was seeing doctors, but they were only treating the symptoms. So I even went as far as going to a sleep doctor because I was just like, okay, I'm snoring and I wasn't snoring before, but that's probably from the weight gain, all of that. So I had a sleep machine. I was, taking vitamins, taking all of these different medications that they were recommending for me, but nothing was working. So eventually, I'm talking to my mom and my aunt and, listening to all of the things that they're saying. I'm like, oh, okay, I probably have an issue with my thyroid, doing research on it. It's not really a organ that people talk about that much. Actually, it's not an organ, it's a gland that people talk about, but it affects Black women more than anybody else in the world. And once it's off balance and your hormones are imbalanced, you have a variety of different symptoms that just they feel like they come out of nowhere. Our body gives us these warning signals. Sometimes we ignore them because it's not extreme, but hair loss, weight gain, infertility, hot and cold feet, like you just all of a sudden just get cold out of nowhere. It's a lot of different things that come along with it. Feeling fatigue, having brain fog. All of these are symptoms that are related to other things as well. So when you tell a doctor this, they're not thinking, okay, let me look at the big picture. They're just trying to treat the symptom. So my mom and my aunt they go to a neurologist and they're like, you just need to go see him. And my mom's been telling me for a while. And I was like, I don't know if he takes my insurance and he sounds like he expensive. And I don't know if that's the doctor for me. Cause that's the first thing we think about, right? You like, do they take my insurance? Cause I ain't trying to pay like $1,000 off of one visit. Right. So that's first and foremost. So yeah, so I ended up calling, made an appointment with him because I had gotten to the point where I had seen so many doctors that I was like, I don't even care how much it costs at this point. I just need to be able to feel like I am being productive and not, fatigued all the time. I want to be my best self for me and for my kids. And called him. He was like, hey, Send me your lab work from your last doctor's visit. Sent it over to him. He was like, oh, you have Hashimoto's. And I was like, what? Like, oh my God, you can tell that from just this? You haven't even seen me yet. He was like, no, I'm pretty sure you have it. You come in, we'll run some tests. Ended up going to the doctors, having about 15 valves of blood drawn because he wanted to test for literally everything. So he could rule out all of the other possibilities of what it could be. And that's what it came back as. And I get people telling me, oh, I'm so sad, or oh, that sucks that you have that. And I'm just like, I'm not. Like, I have a diagnosis and living life for 7 years. And I know some people do it way longer, knowing that something is wrong with you, but you don't know what. So you don't know how to fix it. That part is way worse than actually getting a diagnosis. In this particular instance, having a diagnosis let me know, okay, I'm not going crazy. Something is wrong with my body, or not wrong with it, but it needs some different attention. And it's not a death sentence, right? Like there are medicines for it. There are lifestyle changes I can make to make sure that I'm living my best life. And I don't have to suffer with these symptoms that I had. I have really, really bad digestive issues. So, you know how it is. You want to go out, you want to eat, you want to drink, you want to live your best life, you want to do all of the things. But when you have digestive issues, you're like, am I going to eat when I go out? Or do I need to eat like a couple hours before and just like bite off a couple of things when I get there? Because I don't want to look like I'm 4 months pregnant when I leave because my stomach is bloated so big.
Right.
You're laughing. I'm so serious.
No, I'm with you. I'm into the fasting and trying to eat at the right time so that I have the optimal energy at the right time and stuff like that. So I kind of know what you're talking about in terms of like figuring out how much should you eat and all of that. I don't necessarily want to get into the medications because it's just because different people probably get different medications. But what are some of the lifestyle changes that you
Well, we
made
can
that
actually
other people
talk about that because for this particular thing, there's only really one medication. And it
Okay.
is super important to talk about this, and I'll explain why. So it's called Synthroid, but there are a couple of different versions of it that are generic. When you take the genetic version of it, sometimes you'll have more fluctuation in your side effects from it because they can't get the dosage exactly right because they're using a synthetic product. So one of the key things that my doctor told me was when you go to the pharmacist, check this bag before you leave. Make sure they gave you the name brand. Because he already knew that I would have other issues if I didn't go with the name brand. And that part is super important because I do know people who have used the generic ones and eventually they just gave up on it. They stopped using it because the symptoms were worse than the symptoms they had before they were using it. So that's another reason why it's super important to advocate for yourself. So I did my research. I didn't go down the rabbit's hole. Like I didn't go down Google and just like get stuck in there for weeks. I looked and I, went and found a couple of groups to help support myself and make the right decisions. And before I even asked the doctor about, is this the medicine you're going to put me on? He told me, do not get the generic version, get the standard version. And then after that, the insurance company was like, well, hold on. We're not going to approve this. So then I had to get on the phone with the insurance company to find out what their process was. So I think in our communities, a lot of people either don't have health insurance or they don't understand the health insurance that they do have. They just, probably aren't talking to their HR representatives, not asking questions when they talk to the insurance company, not really, seeing if there are other options. So I definitely was like, I'm not taking anything else. So like, what is y'all normal process so we can go around this? And they literally told me the normal process is for you to try all of the generic versions first. And then if those don't work, then we'll approve the name brand one.
So
I was like, that's not happening.
Of the generic joint first before you get the one that actually works.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm not doing that at all. No, not happening. Called my doctor, was like, this is what they saying. He was like, it's fine, I'll call them. He called them. They got the prescription approved. It costs a little bit more than if I went with the generic one, but it's my life, it's my health. So I'm going to do what it takes, and I'll just adjust my budget accordingly to make sure that I get what I need. But I do know some people who choose not to have the medication. You don't have to have the medication. You can just make the lifestyle changes that are needed, but you have to be very strict with your food. And so some of those lifestyle changes are Like you just said, fasting, right? Eating during certain times of the day, eating your food first and then drinking water afterwards so you can have healthy digestion, making sure you're getting all of the vitamins that you need. So most people who have this condition, they normally have low vitamin D, possibly low
Mm-hmm.
vitamin C as well. So I take vitamin C regularly. I mean, it's a pandemic, so everybody probably need to take extra vitamin C's. So vitamin C's, regular multivitamins. I also take vitamin D, and I take a K2 vitamin in addition to that, because K2 helps the vitamin D actually work the way it's supposed to. So you get the full benefits from it. So I'm not taking all of the vitamins that I'm supposed to be taking yet because I'm slowly weaning them in. So I'll be adding in zinc as well. I don't have any iron issues, so I'm not going to really go there with the iron because I think that's okay. But even powdered magnesium is helpful. So in this area, we are kind of low on magnesium. Iodine is not an issue for us. Most of us eat seafood. We like crabs. We like Old Bay seasoning on them. So iodine is normally okay. But in other parts of the world and parts of the country, sometimes they have low iodine with this.
I was messing with my sister-in-law earlier because I'm not a big seafood guy. Like I eat fish, and she'd be making crab cakes and all kinds. And I'm like, I don't eat things that eat off the bottom of the ocean. She's like, but you eat beef. She's like, you eat cows. I was
So
like, oh
that's the
man.
other thing, right? So our world, or I guess the United States, not even the world, but just the United States, with the food and nutrition advice that they give us, a lot of it we shouldn't listen to. And I'm saying that subjectively. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physician. I'm not on here to give anybody any advice related to what they need to do with their body. Just share my experience. No one, nobody knock on my door like D said.
Yep.
But you take Cheerios, for instance, right? Cheerios is supposed to be heart healthy, but Cheerios is not actually healthy for us. But people have been eating it for decades because they've been advertising it as heart healthy. You get a lot of stuff that's happening where it's like, oh, don't eat, they're telling us have high protein diets and get all this other stuff out, right? Most Americans have enough protein because you're getting protein
Mm.
from the vegetables you eat as well as the meat. Most of us eat way too much meat. It's supposed to be the size of the palm of your hand once a day, and we're eating meat in every single meal that we eat. So grass-fed beef is a change that a lot of people can make that'll help them out. For me, with the struggle I'm having lately with all of these supply chain issues because of the pandemic and the war and all of those things, is finding wild caught salmon. Most of our fish is farm raised and genetically modified. So I don't eat tilapia. I stopped eating that a long time ago. That is a man-made fish. So I leave that one alone. I try to stick to like salmon. Every so often I'll do some whiting. I'm sure you probably don't eat catfish since you said you don't like stuff that grow at the bottom
No,
of
I
the
eat
ocean.
catfish. Hold on, real quick. My only thing about the crab thing, right, is that if she make crab cakes, I taste it. I have an issue with my food looking the same way when it was alive as it is on my plate. So when you go to the cookout and they got the crab, you like nah,
You like,
that's
nah,
not for me. No, no.
you don't want it looking at you.
No, no, I don't want my food looking at me. I don't want I don't want no whole pig on the table. None, I can't. None of that. No, 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 no. Send my stuff through some type of process to change the way it looks.
Yeah, see, I'm like that with most things. Crabs, not so much. I don't care. I'm going to eat them. But with like fish and a whole pig, nah, cut the head off. I don't need to see all of that extra stuff. I'm not with it. I'm not doing it.
Right, right, right. I'm with you. I'm with you. Talk about what you went through emotionally, because I mean, 7 years is a long time to be like, yo, what's wrong with me?
Yeah, it is. And some people suffer even longer than that. Um, you just get defeated at some point, right? You have your highs and your lows. You have moments when you wake up and you're like, oh, I feel amazing. I feel like I look good. Everything's going to be great today. And then there's some days you wake up and I literally have a mug that says, I woke up like this, #tired. Because I
Mm,
literally will wake up and I will be like, did I even sleep? And I was sleeping. I was getting sleep, but I woke up and I was still exhausted because my body was not operating at its highest efficiency. And I wasn't getting into that deep sleep because of this condition. And so another part of this condition is it does affect your sleep. It can affect your mood. this one is a weird one because I didn't even know that this one was a thing. But it actually can change the size and shape of your tongue. So I remember at one point I had reached out to my mom and I was like, Mom, I think my tongue like got flatter and or wider or something. Like, is that normal? Like, I'm pretty sure this is not me just like being over the top. And when
Right.
I learned that that was one of the side effects, I was like, wow, like some of the smallest things that we just don't think about are controlled by this wonderful gland. Because if we didn't have it, you would have to take medication regularly. My aunt has had a large portion of her thyroid removed, and she does have to take medication pretty regularly to keep everything, all of her hormones operating the way they're supposed to. So you go through a lot of periods where you're just like, let me change this, let me try that. And then, it works. You feel like it's working, right? Because you're losing some weight, you're feeling a little bit better. But the minute that you stop doing whatever it is and try to go back to like your normal lifestyle, everything comes back full circle within like 2 weeks. So just imagine you do some type of cleanse for 3 months, you lost a good 10, 15, maybe 20 pounds. You start slowly adding back, your regular foods that you eat, and you're back to your regular weight before the diet or before the cleanse within 2 weeks.
Yeah,
So that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. I like to get my audience questions in. Honey Wordsmith said, can this happen if you have another autoimmune disease?
Absolutely. You can definitely have more than one autoimmune disease at a time. Autoimmune basically means that something is imbalanced in your body, and your body thinks that whatever the gland, organ, or whatever it is bad, and it starts attacking it. So that's the thing that makes it a little bit different with having an autoimmune disease versus just having a regular thyroid issue. Because there are some people who have thyroid issues and they don't have Hashimoto's. And I do have to tell you guys this. So my I'm a mom. So I was like, okay, I need to find out all of these things before I tell my kids. Because, you don't want your kids to freak out. You don't want them to be like, what does this mean? Like, what are you telling me? So I told my son I have Hashimoto's, and my oldest son, and the first thing he says is, you have Hashi what? What is that? That sounds like that's some Japanese thing. He's like, did you catch a Japanese disease? And I'm like, it is not a Japanese disease. The person who, discovered it and, all of those things, built it out, kind of did research on it. It is named after that person. But I did have to make sure I had enough information before I had that conversation with them, because I did want to be able to answer their questions, and I didn't want them to freak out and think, oh, my mom's going to have to go in the hospital, or, a bunch of stuff is going to have to change, or, how severe is this thing that she's telling me?
Okay. Do you know why, and I'm going to get to y'all questions. Do you know why it affects Black women at a higher rate than other people?
So my personal belief is that it is where we are located. So we know there are Black people all over the country. Part of it is how we eat, what we eat, where the food is sourced, and what we drink. So water is a big part of this. You cannot drink tap water if you have an autoimmune disease. It is not an option. I got my bottle of water over here too. You cannot do the tap water. Tap water has so many different things in it that cause us to, free radicals that just cause your body to react in a bunch of different ways. You can get test kits. They send them in the mail most of the time, but you can always request one. They're free. You can check your water and see what's in it. The other pieces that I say, are related to where we live. When you look at where Black people typically live, we live with other people of color. Is normally not a high population of Caucasians where we live. You just see more people who look similar to you, or another nationality that has a similar skin tone. Those areas tend to be food deserts. And what I mean by that is the food that's received from our grocery stores, they come from a lot of different places, most of the time from the West Coast or from wherever they can get them from. A lot of it's genetically modified. And we don't really question it. We kind of just go in and pick up what we need and we keep it moving. But there are also fast food places everywhere, and not the healthy kind. Like where I live, there's no Sweet Green. So there's nowhere for me to go and get a healthy salad really quick. I have to either drive further out, or I would have to make it at home myself. So a lot of that is the reason for it. So it's the chemicals that are in our food, the chemicals that are in our water, but it's also the cleaning products that we use in our homes. And it could even be the pots and pans that we use. So if you use a pot or pan that's not coated with the proper things, every time you cook, that stuff is getting into your food.
So it's a lot that goes into it. That's a
It
lot.
is.
Yeah, y'all gonna have to take notes on this. Sweet_fee says, what were your coping mechanisms?
So just bit for one, having my sister circle, reaching out to the ladies who are in my life and just letting them know what I'm going through. Finding out what's going on with my family. So that's the biggest piece, right? So I just mentioned that my aunt had surgery on her thyroid. She had it so long ago that I didn't even think that that was something that would affect me. So when you're filling out those doctor's forms and stuff like that, when they're like, oh, does your family have hypertension? Do you have diabetes? All of these things. Most of the time they ask, is it your mother, father, a sister, or a brother? Sometimes they might ask like an aunt or an uncle, but most of the time you don't see that on there. This is my mom's sister. So it's direct relation to me. So that should have been one of the first things that I actually looked into. And because my weight wasn't fluctuating until after I had my son, it wasn't even something to think about. I'm sure I had this issue probably well before I had him. And then something occurred during that time period, which was probably me switching my birth control after I had him, that just sent everything like haywire. Because that's a totally different hormone that I'm introducing to my body that it wasn't used to.
Okay. Sammy Stu says, is it suggested for people with Hashimoto's to see a registered dietitian? Is this someone/something that may be able to help minimize symptoms and balance nutrition levels?
Absolutely. So that's a big part of what we were just talking about, right? If you know better, you do better. Unfortunately, the way our society is set up, the cheapest food is normally the stuff that's not healthy for you. It's the worst food to eat. So you do have to make some adjustments. So those are some of the lifestyle changes that I've been working on since I found out what my diagnosis was. Actually before then, because I was just trying to get fit and in shape and all of those things. I was like, I don't want to go into the next decade of my life and then be like, oh, I got high blood pressure and diabetes and this and this and this, all of these things that I know run in my family. So I was already on that path to trying to do the preventative health things. But the food piece is a big part, and especially now since food and gas are ridiculously expensive. So when you factor in trying to eat healthy and only eat healthy, it definitely makes you look at your budget like, okay, I got to figure out where I can cut some stuff and shift some things around.
Does exercise play a role in any way, shape, or fashion?
Absolutely. Yep. So when you have an autoimmune disease, your body reacts very differently to stress. So stress is a major trigger. So in addition to the food and the other things that you're ingesting, just breathing in and drinking water and all of those things, stress is a true, just like, I guess, probably the most important part of it. And I will tell you all, just so when I went to my doctor, this was my first visit with him. He's asking me all of these questions. A good doctor will ask you about your lifestyle, what your stressors are, and all of those type of things. So they want to make sure that you're actually, living the way you need to be living and seeing if these different factors could cause you to be more stressed out, less stressed out, or any of those things. So while I was there, he looked in my eyes. He also looked at my tongue. As soon as I stuck my tongue out, he was like, oh, your anxiety is through the roof. And I'm like, anxiety? I don't have anxiety. What you talking about? And he's like, no, you have really bad anxiety. And so for me, I'm not thinking that I have anxiety because I'm like, oh, I'm juggling all the balls. None of them are dropping. I'm doing good. But depression and anxiety issues are part of stress. So they come along with this heavily. So that's just a big piece of it. So you do have to monitor that. Seeing a dietitian is great. For me, I'm in physical therapy right now because I was in a car accident. That is super helpful. I'm also seeing a acupuncturist, and that helps relieve stress as well. And it also helps with some of the symptoms that come from having an autoimmune disease. When it comes to the exercise, you do have to watch your body. If you were just diagnosed, you probably need to do low impact exercises, not anything that's too stressful or too strenuous. And you have to have that recovery period. So you got to do something for 30 minutes to an hour that's not too over the top, and then let your body rest that next day so you can fully recover, and then start back. And, if you can handle it, do something a little bit more stressful. So like doing a HIIT workout, that's not going to work for me. I can't do that. My body is going to freak out, and then I'm going to be hurting for like 4 days.
See, I do HIIT workouts all the time. That's That's my
Most
thing.
people
I
do.
like HIIT. Yeah. HIIT, I love HIIT workouts. They're great.
I love them too. I
Um,
think they're awesome. But
but you
for
can't go.
my body is like, yeah, what you think you doing? Like,
Yeah,
stop
nah.
that. Don't do that. And I'm about to show you why you shouldn't do that.
They go do that power walk.
Yeah, I mean, walking is great, bike riding is great, playing tennis, dancing, doing yoga, even if it's just stretches. Stretches are super helpful too. So when you have a condition like this, you tend to have joint issues also because your vitamin D is low and you're probably not getting enough exercise anyway. I sit behind a desk at a computer for the majority of the day, so I have to like set alarms so I can get up and walk around or stretch or or lift my desk up so I can actually stand and work.
Mm. Do you is there I'm not good at going to the doctor, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I know that at certain age points you get checkups for particular things. Like I'll be 40 this year, so I got to go get the prostate and colon and all of that good stuff.
Oh, I know you like
Is
no.
uh, but is the thyroid? I forget what it's called.
Yeah, you can just say the
Hashimoto's.
thyroid.
It's I
Yeah,
don't know. I'm gonna say it right. Is the Hashimoto's something that is on the schedule to be checked at a particular age, or is it something that you just kind of got it? You just got this shit, and now we got to figure out how to work with it.
pretty much. Yeah, most doctors don't test for it, and when they do, they don't test for everything they need to test for. So there's
Mm,
the hormones that they're looking for are TSH, and they convert from a T4 to a T3. So basically, you get one
mm,
naturally, and it converts into this other thing to be able to spread it through your body. Most doctors don't test for both. They just test your thyroid level. And if your level falls within whatever they consider the normal range to be, or if
mm,
it's just a little bit outside of it, either way, they're going to be like, oh, you're fine. So I will say that I think it is important for everyone to get copies of their lab work. Most lab work is super explanatory. When you look at it, you'll see the negative lines. They put stuff in red on there. If something is in red, you need to go on Google, type it in, and see why it's red, and then go back and ask questions. Because if you don't, you'll never know what came back on your blood work. Because most of the time, doctors don't give you that unless you actually ask for it. So, first tip that I would give people: if you do think you have a health issue, not necessarily Hashimoto's, but any type of health issue, um, take your weight in the morning before you do anything else. If your weight is fluctuating a lot, even if it's just 2 or 3 pounds, but if it's different all the time, that is a signal, right? Keep a journal,
mm.
put that in there. Take your temperature in the morning. If your temperature is not consistent, that is also something that can show that something is a little bit off with what's going on in your body. Those are slight things that if you tell a doctor those things and say, hey, I've been looking at this over the course of a month and it's irregular, that causes them to go and say, oh, we probably need to look at some other things. You can't, I think most people go to the doctor and they're like, okay, I'm just going to get this physical, so I'm good. And if something is
Mm.
wrong, maybe they have like a list, but they haven't really done the work beforehand to say, okay, this is what I'm seeing from week to week. So we got to help them out. We got to give them something to go on.
I think you answered Sammy Stew's second question, which was how do you suggest as a woman, and more specifically as a woman of color, advocate for themselves medically?
So that's the first part. If you don't understand your health insurance, I work in HR. I'm an HR business partner. So I help people with this all the time. Go talk to your HR, whoever is in charge of the benefits. It's normally the HR ops. They'll sit down and they'll show you every single thing, and you can ask a bunch of questions. Sometimes people don't know what questions to ask. So the first things I would want to know is how is this plan different from the other plans? Is there anywhere where I can look and see what conditions are covered, if they're pre-existing or not pre-existing, because that plays a big part into it, right? So if you have a pre-existing condition and you go to some insurances, they're like, that's pre-existing. We only going to do the bare minimum. We're not doing a whole bunch of extra stuff. So we're not going to pay for no extra tests because you already know you got this. So we're not doing all of that. So I would ask about those things. And then just if you have a doctor that you do not feel comfortable with, if you don't feel like they're taking your concerns seriously, do some research, get on your insurance's website, search around, look and see what ratings these doctors are getting, see what schools they went to, talk to your friends and family, ask them about the doctors that they're going to, and switch them out. I know a lot of young people, they feel like, oh, this is the doctor my mom took me to, so I'm gonna just keep going to them forever. As you grow and you get older, that might not be the doctor for you. Most of the time, you're not going to see your pediatrician when you're 30 and you're 40 years old. That's not really how that works. They're going to kick you out anyway. They like, oh no, you get too old. You got to go find a regular practitioner at this point. But yeah, if you're not finding what you need, go see a different doctor or a different type of doctor. So with this condition that I have, I technically should be seeing an immune specialist, but the doctor that I'm seeing is actually a neurologist. So I believe the immune specialist is called an endocrinologist. So I could go to one of those, but I'm happy with the doctor that I have. And he deals with the brain. He does brain surgery. He deals with, all of the nerves and all of that. So he has a lot of knowledge on the body in general. And then from my first experience with him, I was definitely like, okay, yeah, he knows what he's talking about. And he's confirmed the things that I felt I already knew were going on with my body. But now he's told me even more and was able to give me a natural regimen to go with the medicine. So it wasn't like, here, take these pills and, I'm going to get all this money off you taking this pill and being addicted to it for the rest of your life. That was not how this situation was. A lot of these doctors get kickbacks for recommending certain medications. They know they have side effects and they want you to come back to them for those side effects to get the next pill that's going to treat that side effect. This doctor was not like that. So I feel very comfortable with him. And some of the first things that he told me to do to treat my anxiety, and I think this will be helpful for the viewers, is to get chamomile leaf tea. So that is very different than regular chamomile tea. He told me to drink chamomile leaf tea twice a day. So once in the morning and once in the evening, because it makes you calm. And then to make my own almond milk and drink that in the middle of the day. Because that settles your stomach and your digestion. So that helped me out dramatically in the beginning of this process while we were testing the medication dosages, because we had to change it a few times to get to a point where we could get it right.
So let's talk about how the men in women's lives who are experiencing what you went through, what advice would you give husbands and boyfriends or girlfriends and wives for that matter who are in a relationship with someone who's kind of dealing with that?
For one, just be understanding, be sensitive to their body, that their body will be different. If you notice, certain things are changing, it's like, oh, whoa, hold on, that wasn't the way it was before. And I know a lot of times, significant others don't want to comment on a person's weight because it could go left real quick. You got to talk to them about it when they call. Right, you got to talk to them about it when they call and just be like, babe, I noticed, you look a little different lately. I want to make sure you're healthy and, you seem to be a little more stressed. When's your next doctor's appointment? I'll go with you and actually go with them and just be supportive. A big piece of this is the food, right? So there are things that you're not supposed to eat. So a lot of people think about diabetes and they say, oh, you got the sugars, right? And so when you think about sugar, you think about actual sugar, like white sugar that you're putting in things to eat or drink. Sugar is also starch. Starch converts to sugar in our bodies. So I try not to eat really any starches. Every blue moon, I might have today I had French fries, but generally I don't eat those. It's a process to get to a point of weaning those things out. So you're going to go through different ebbs and flows because we like what we like to eat, right? So you're like, I could just eat it this one time. But everybody's body's a little bit different. So if you find out that you can't eat it that one time, you got to be really strict on yourself. So I think that that's a big piece of it too. So if you know a person can't eat certain stuff, don't eat that around them. Be kind to them. Don't make them suffer and have them over there drooling like Patrick off of SpongeBob while you over there eating the donuts and the club sandwich. And they like, man, I got to go over here and eat this fish again and eat these vegetables while you over there snacking on these potato chips. So you got to just be mindful of those things. And it affects guys too. So guys do have thyroid issues. Kids can also have thyroid issues. I happen to have the version of it that causes you to lose weight. Hyperthyroidism is when you can't gain weight. So you burn, and you got all this energy and then you just burn out and you don't gain any weight. Another type of thyroid condition is when you have both. So you can have hyper and hypo. And that normally means that you have Graves' disease. And Graves' disease is really serious. A lot of people have to have surgery if they have Graves' disease.
So if you have thyroid issues, and you can't gain weight, is that typically a better situation to be in than if you have thyroid issues and it causes you weight gain?
No, I think it's about the same. So I actually have people in my life who have struggled with gaining weight because they were so small. And they're like, I
Mm.
eat and I do these things and I can't build any more muscle. I can't get bigger. And, you know, everybody has different views of themselves. So I don't think that is one is better or worse than the other. It's just a different struggle. If you are smaller and you can't gain weight, that can be dangerous, right? Because there are people who
Mm.
go in the hospital because they are considered malnutrition. Malnutrition is because they don't have enough weight. So if you're burning and burning and burning, eventually you're going to burn out and you're not going to have any energy to do anything. So when you're hyper, that's kind of how it works. You can function to what you feel is normal, but you actually are burning way more energy than the average person would because you're all over the place. Like you're just busy all day, every day.
Mm. Let's talk about the infertility aspect. I know you mentioned that pretty early on.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a hypothetical woman. She's trying to get pregnant. She's not. She hasn't been successful. Is that something where you go to your doctor and be like, hey, I think you should check my thyroid?
I would. I would absolutely. I'm honestly shocked that I haven't had any fertility issues because, like I said, I have two sons. One's 18 and one is 8, about to turn 9. So I was fortunate where I didn't have those issues. But this condition literally attacks your body. So I'm pretty sure you've heard of situations before where couples couldn't get pregnant because the woman's body was attacking the male sperm.
Hmm.
Most people have heard of someone who's had that before. This is kind of the same thing, but your body is attacking your own, female parts. So it is very serious, but it is one of those things that once you find out that that's what the issue is, you can definitely, be on a better side of having greater chances of conceiving. Um, this goes right along with how serious fibroids and cysts on the ovaries. It's just as serious, if not more serious than those things, because all of it has to work together. If you have fibroids and cysts and you have a thyroid issue, you got to do something because you're not going to be able to conceive. And if you do conceive, your pregnancy is probably going to be extremely difficult and painful.
Mm. Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is, but it's not something that is checked regularly either. So you have women who go through all of these different treatments and changing all of these things and taking hormones, but if their thyroid isn't checked, then a lot of the times the stuff doesn't work. And unfortunately, some women do get pregnant and they end up losing their babies because everything's like the environment is just not what it needs to be to produce a child and keep it in there, have it nourished and grow.
Mm. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Let's talk more in general, right?
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on the current emotional state of Black women
Oh,
generally?
wow. I think everybody in the world right now needs therapy. And I think a lot of people are getting therapy. It is becoming more difficult to find a therapist because so many people need therapy. I've had several
Hmm.
people come to me lately or recently that said, yeah, I'm trying to get therapy either for me or for my kid, but like I can't find a therapist. Like everybody's booked up. So for that, I would say keep trying, try different methods. If you don't feel comfortable doing virtual, try in person. If you don't feel comfortable doing in person, do virtual. If you don't feel comfortable with either one of those, try doing phone calls, chats, something. They have so many different services out here now, and a lot of them are free or discounted depending on what insurance you have. Or if you don't have insurance at all, you can still get the care that you need. But it's imperative. We definitely need it. Talk to your family and your friends also. Get all of those
Hmm.
things out there, but at the same time, you may need that neutral party to kind of just listen and hear what you have to say. And hopefully, if you have a good therapist, they'll give you some things to work on before your next meeting with them so you can actually feel like you're accomplishing something.
Mm. So when you have health insurance, I have health insurance, right? And
Hmm.
if you need a particular doctor, and I'm asking you this because you're HR, so this is like me coming in like into your office
Yeah,
asking
go for
questions,
it.
right? But it seems like when you are looking for a particular doctor or a particular kind of doctor, specialist or something like that, they have this really long list of all of these people who trying to get your bread. So is it that is it that people are just lacking? the information? Are they lacking access to health insurance? Or is it really that these doctors are really just booked that much?
I think it's a little bit of all of it. So you do have people who, they're not going to go to the doctor until something is wrong. If you're stressed out because something is wrong, yeah, what's the likelihood of you really being like, let me get on a computer and research these doctors? You like, nah, I just need to get whoever going to take me right now because I need this pain to go away or I need this symptom to stop. So I think we do have to, pay attention to what's going on with our bodies. So the doctors are really busy. Different protocols because of COVID, right? So you may have to wait in your car until they tell you can come in, and they may not be seeing as many patients in a day, or you might have to get a virtual visit depending on what your symptoms are. But I do think it's a lack of insurance for some people, even though we have insurance available for everyone. Everybody can get Obamacare, but some people just don't do their due diligence to look into that. And then for us specifically, we don't like to go to the doctors. So that's a big part of it too, right? We don't want to go until something is absolutely wrong. We have to have those preventative checkups. If we don't have that, it, causes a lot of problems later on, because each decade of our lives, and for some people, it's every 5 years, your body goes through a complete cycle change based on your environment. So think about all of the things that have changed in just this year or 2 years. So our environment is totally different. I'm dealing with sinus and allergy issues right now, which is normally the time of the year when I'm dealing with them. But it was literally like 75 degrees last week, and then it dropped down to 20, 30 degrees this week, and then now it's going back up. So that plays a part in it too. So it's a lot of different factors there. I don't think people get on these websites, research the doctors. They may talk to a friend or a family member and use their doctor as a referral if they like them. I think that's okay too. But you got to ask questions. Don't just go in there and just, oh, the doctor said I'm okay. He said my blood pressure is fine and my weight is fine. But inside you don't feel well, or you're not sleeping. And in that case, sometimes we just want to hear that we're okay. And that's generally not enough.
Yeah, I just need that paper saying everything looks good on
I'm
the
good.
level. So
I should wake up tomorrow.
I should be good. Yeah. I got another 20 in me. I'm good. Let me ask you this. Are you currently in therapy? Do you go to therapy, or have you been to a
So
therapy process?
I was in therapy a few months ago, and then I stopped just because of scheduling conflict. So it's just like what you were just saying, right? It's hard to get the schedule right when you're trying to juggle all of these different things. But I do think it's important. I think that some people need to be in therapy for their entire lives, depending on what traumas they've had. For others, you need it periodically. But I do think everybody needs therapy at some point in their life. Because our world is just so complex. And when you add in the technology and all of the social pressures that come with that, I'm scared for our kids. Like they're dealing with a whole different world of stuff than what we dealt with when we were growing up. So they really can't tell what's real and what's fake, who to trust, who not to trust, why we're valuing anybody's opinion on the internet that we don't even know, why we're trusting every source on the internet when anybody can put anything on the internet. So I definitely think the kids need it, and then the adults need it as well. We need to normalize that. The adults need to say it's okay. Like, doesn't mean you're crazy because you're talking to somebody to get some help or to relieve some stress or to talk about that thing to them that you don't want to talk to anybody else about.
I agree. You can't put anything on the internet that's not true. And
The internets don't lie, right?
the internet, it's not, you're not allowed to lie on the internet. No matter the fact that two different people say opposing ideas, both of them. I have a therapist. Me and my wife, we go every other week.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy it. I mean, I think sometimes me and my therapist, we sit there and we'll debate topics that have nothing to do with my personal life. You know what I'm saying? We'll
Yeah.
get in there and debate politics, social issues. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, you do carry, especially with social media, you scroll and it's like, oh, music, oh, sports, oh, Donald Trump, oh, Joe Biden, you get triggered. You know what I'm saying? And so it's
Mm-hmm.
nice to be able to go in there and talk it out and get tips on how to cope and all that. And then I'm a cop too, so sometimes I go in there and be like, I had this crazy stuff happen. So yeah, I'm all for therapy. Therapy is cool. I
And I
enjoy
think
it.
that's okay. Sometimes you got to talk about just the regular things, right? Because it's still stress relieving. You're not focusing on the
Hmm.
things that cause you high stress. So any moment that you can have a conversation with someone that takes your mind off of all of the work and regular everyday life stuff is a good moment. So I think that's awesome that you and your wife are seeing a therapist. I do want to ask though, is
What's up?
your therapist, I think you said it was a male. Did I hear you say him? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All
So,
right.
so when we started looking, I think a big part of knowledge of self is truly understanding like who you are, your firewalls, and stuff like that. And I was like, well, I
Mm-hmm.
would be honest. I was like, um, if I go to a black lady, because I'm looking for somebody that's black, so that I could just feel completely, you know what I'm saying, just be like,
Yeah, you can just let it all out
I can just let
and
it
not
all
feel
out and not be
judged.
like, whatever. So, and my only hang up about having a black woman was that I knew that at some point she was going to say something that was probably legit, and I was going to feel like she was only saying that because she's a black woman and my wife is a black woman, and I didn't want that. Now, I mean, my wife could have felt the same way and been like, well, if we go to a black guy, he may be on your side. Our therapist isn't
Mm-hmm.
like that. But that was the hang up that I did, and that I didn't want to deal with, and I could be extremely stubborn. I could just be like, you know what, I don't want to talk about it no more. And I
Mm-hmm.
can go for years without talking about it. And I didn't want that to happen. So I
Ooh,
needed to
that's
be
not good.
comfortable. It's not good. I've gotten better at it. I've gotten a lot better at it, but I still know that that's an aspect of my personality. That's kind of like, I'll shut down on you. I'll be like, "Ah, whatever, I'm cool."
But I think
So
that's interesting that you know that and that you own it and you accept it. And that's not odd. I feel like specifically most black men are that way. They'll hold something in for a year and then it'll come out at some random point and you're like, hold on, you still think about that?
let me ask you this. Who's more emotional, men or women?
I don't think I can answer that. I think it depends on what's going on in the moment. So I'm not really with the gender norms, right?
Hmm.
So, and I'll use this as an example because I feel like this is something that Black people talk about all the time. It's always, once a woman is scorned, or if the guy hurts her, but she still wants him, oh, you better be careful. She might try to trap you, right? She might try to
Hmm.
get pregnant, so you got to stay with her. Men do the same thing. They do the exact same thing. So I think it just depends on what our triggers are. So if something triggers you, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you're going to have a reaction to it.
Hmm.
Some people are more sensitive than others. Some people are
Hmm.
more empathetic. So empaths, they just process things a little bit differently. I'm a little bit of an empath. I'm learning how to monitor and work around that now because I know that I have to set boundaries. I am very much a giver. And sometimes when you are the strong person and you're a giver, people rely on you so much and they don't feel like the things they're asking of you are a lot because you're always so giving and you're always
Hmm.
available. So over the last probably like 2-3 years, I've been setting up some boundaries so that I can focus on me. Because if I'm stressed out, then it's just not going to be good for anybody because then I'm not going to want to help you. I'm not going to answer your phone calls, or I'm going to help you, but then I'm not going to feel great about helping you because maybe I needed to be doing something else, or maybe I just needed to, focus on self care at that moment.
Yeah, that was one of the things that my therapist and I discussed, and he was kind of explaining to me. He was like, I forget what the other term was. He was like, you have people who are generators of energy, and you have people who are essentially like receivers or takers of energy.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, you have to learn how to shut your generator down, recharge, refuel, or whatever the case may be, because if you're constantly giving, 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 you're gonna get to a point where you, as a generator, you're just gonna shut down, and he's like, that's not really good for anybody.
Yeah, every job that I've had has involved a lot of um, socialness with whoever it is, right? Whether it's my colleagues or clients. And I am the type of person that I will take in emotion. So if you're important to me, then yes, absolutely. Whatever you're feeling, I literally will feel that thing.
Mm.
So to explain this, so my sister had my niece and we went to the hospital. She called me. She said, my water just broke. We going to the hospital. I'm in there. I'm holding her hand. I'm like, yes, the baby's coming. All of a sudden, I started getting these pains in my back. I'm like, hold on, I got a headache. Like, what's happening? So I'm really like, what is wrong? Like, I ate breakfast this morning. I was good 5 minutes ago. I'm asking the nurse, can you bring me some Tylenol? All of these things, right? So my niece is born. Literally, right after she was born, the symptoms went away. So my mom was
Mm.
like, "Oh, I think you were like having sympathy contractions. You were feeling what she was feeling." So I know that I have that ability to do that. So that is one of the reasons why I am very picky about who I choose to let in my circle. Because if you're not going to be respectful of my feelings or your own feelings, because some people don't respect themselves enough to care about themselves enough to talk about themselves in a positive manner. I can't deal with it. Like I want to help you, but I can't have you close to me where it's a lot of negativity or I'm just getting like these weird vibes from you because yeah, nah. I need to be my best self for me and I need to be here to be able to see my great grandkids if I can. I can't do that if somebody is draining me, sucking the life out of me, or they put all their burdens on me and they leave and they feel good and I'm sitting here like, oh my God, what happened? I felt great when they got here and now I feel like I need to just curl up in the bed and stay there for a week. That's just not a
Hmm.
good situation.
Okay, yeah, Ace Renetta, she says, of course, men, duh. So she's saying that men are more emotional. I was having a conversation with a coworker one day, and we were kind of having a similar conversation, and she said, I think men are more emotional. I'm like, what? But I'm really good at questioning my own beliefs. So I'm like, okay, let me hear you out. And her explanation was basically that men are more emotional because when men are, we'll use the term overly emotional, right? When men are
Mm-hmm.
more overly emotional, they tend to act out in more violent ways in general than women. And so I
I don't know if I believe that, but keep going.
so the way I kind of look at it like this. I think on a day in, day out basis, women are driven by their emotions more than men, right? I think men are more driven by logic on a day in, general, day out basis. But I think that because we are more physical, we carry more physicality to
Mm-hmm.
us. When we are emotional, we are more likely to act out in a physical way, which is typically worse than someone calling you a name or ranting to you or screaming at you or whatever the case may be. So, who's more emotional? I don't know. But I think that when a man gets emotional, like if I'm in the house and I get angry or I start crying, my daughters are going to be like, oh, like this is really serious. As
Mm-hmm.
opposed to if my wife gets upset or starts crying, they're like, this is serious, but it ain't daddy's
Yeah, they're more,
upset
oh, mommy,
serious.
what's wrong? And
Yeah.
you, they might be like, whoa, hold on. I might need to back up.
Yeah. So like, it's more like the kids they just kind of know. They'll be like, hey, look, like, daddy, you need to chill. Like, all right, it's cool. You're right. I'm wrong. Let's just drop it for right now and move on. Sammy
Yeah, I
Stoops
think
says, go ahead.
I was just about to say I think she got a point there. Sammy said, men are emotional in the ways that are socially acceptable, aka anger. So I agree with that. I do think that when specifically women of color,
Hmm.
we're labeled the angry black woman or, called out our names and things like that just for being passionate. You don't even have to be angry. You can just be passionate about what the subject is and we get labeled that way. I do think though, it depends on how you process your emotions. If you're in the
Hmm.
middle of an argument, and you're the type of person that wants to argue and get your point across, you're probably a little less likely to have a physical reaction unless you feel like the reaction that you're getting is not what you wanted, right? So if I'm trying to get my point across, I feel like you're not listening to me or you're walking away from me. I'm gonna pull on you.
Hmm.
Come on, you gonna listen to me type of thing. I think with on the opposite, if you're the type of person who's like, I don't want to deal with this confrontation while I'm heated, you walk away, you let some time go by, and then maybe you want to talk about it. It still doesn't change the fact that you felt the way you felt. You just didn't express it the same way the other person did. So I can understand how you're saying guys can get physical quicker than women can. I don't
Hmm.
think it's a quicker thing. I think it's that they just have held it in for so long because they didn't talk about it or they didn't dive deep into it that by the time they get to the boiling point, it becomes physical. And then you get two highly charged men who are dealing with a bunch of other stuff. Oh yeah, they're gonna go at each other. Like, oh man, you bumped me. Oh, we ready to fight. And it was like, dang, my bad, dude. Like, it wasn't that serious, but both of them are highly charged. They ready to fight. Now, a woman, and I can't speak for all women because all women don't process this way, but a woman is more likely to want the long term satisfaction of their anger. So I feel like guys want the immediate satisfaction, right? I'm gonna fight
Okay.
somebody, I'm gonna hit somebody, I'm gonna, whatever it is that is physical. With a
Hmm.
woman, we'll go put sugar in your gas tank, slit your tires, call the other chick that you dealing with because we mad you not talking to us.
Hmm.
We want to mess your life up. We want you to feel what we feeling. We want that long term, even though it's short term, because I mean,
Yeah.
it's an
Get
immediate
some new tires.
inconvenience. Yeah, it's an inconvenience. I'm making him feel how I feel at this moment. I'm making his life a little bit more difficult. So that's how
Hmm.
most women react. Women do get physical too, just depends on what the circumstance is and what type of stress they're dealing with. So I do think it just depends on what you're going through and who you're going through it with, because one person might do the same thing that the next person does, but because they react to you differently, it causes you to react differently. So you might be ready to smack one
Hmm.
person, and the other person, you might actually be like, okay, let me sit down because they're reasonable and I'm probably over the top right now. We'll come back to this later.
Okay, so I'm with you. I'm with you. I gotta process that. I gotta process that. So when I watch the replay, I'm gonna see where I'm at on that. I'm still up in the air. Um, I don't really know if I
I've
want to
done
touch on this
couples
really.
counseling too, so that's why I asked you, was your counselor a man or a woman?
Yeah. He's a guy. Um, Real quick, what do you think about the slap heard around the world?
I knew that was coming.
I don't typically do that stuff because I don't really care about celebrities, but we're on the topic
But
of
it's
emotions,
important. Hmm.
emotions, and that was definitely emotions, right? So, what are your
So
thoughts?
my
What you think?
immediate reaction was something else is going on here. Something
Okay.
else happened in their history to cause this to happen.
Mm,
Just thinking about these two men, right? I don't know Chris
mm,
Rock personally. I don't know Will Smith personally, right? I have not been in any room with the two of them at any given point, right? But you can tell from things that you've seen, how they interact with people, what they talk about relating to their regular lives, how they typically react to things. So that was my first initial reaction was, okay, yeah, this something else is going on here. This is not a, oh, you made a comment that I didn't like. This was, you have probably repeatedly said something about whatever it was that triggered him, and he's told you that it triggered him, and he asked you not to do it, and you did it anyway. So that was my initial thought. Now, of course, some days have passed and people are like, well, maybe this was just a stunt because the Oscars ratings was low and now they got all of these ratings and people are interested in it and all of that. I don't know. I do think that it is never okay to assault somebody, whether it's on TV or not. Like, keep your hands to
mm,
yourself and work through it as an adult. I do think it is important for men to stand up for their women, but it needs to be
mm.
done in an appropriate manner. When it comes to the actual Oscar itself, the award, I don't think they should take it away from him, but the likelihood of that is probably pretty likely. Like, everybody has rules. If you violate those rules, you're going to pay in one way or another. You're going to be banned, you're going to have to pay some money, or you're going to have to get an award back, or you're going to have to do a tour of apologies. There's going to be some type of consequence from that, probably on both their ends. For Chris, he had the physical immediate consequence, but for him is he's gonna make money off of this, right? His
Right.
show just sold out when they were having trouble getting people to buy the tickets. Now everybody wants to see what he has to say. So was it a publicity stunt? I don't know. Should Chris have, retaliated on the stage? Probably wouldn't have been a good situation. I don't know too many black men that's gonna let another man smack them and not immediately have a reaction to that. But that was another reason why I thought, okay, Dave went through some other stuff and he knew that was not the moment. And he was trying to save his job, of course, right? You're on TV, you got trying to keep the show rolling. But he could have went backstage and they could have rumbled. It could have been, oh, we got to cut this program short for real. This is it. This is the end of the night. But that's not what happened.
Just shut it down.
Yeah.
Um, I think I agree with you 100%. I think that I thought that I'm up in the air on if it's staged. I've seen legitimate evidence to it being staged and stuff like that, but that's no fun to talk about if it's staged, right? It's just corny
Mm-hmm.
if it's staged. Um, I will say this. I thought that if Will was going to go on stage and confront Chris Rock about it, it would have been really powerful and a really great moment if he just walked on the stage and I don't know, like put his hand on Chris Rock's shoulder like Bane did in Dark Knight Rises and was like, "Yo, apologize to my wife right here, right now. Show
Right.
doesn't go
Take
on
the
until you
mic.
apologize to my wife. And Chris Rock was of sound enough mind to be like, you know what? I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
And Will would have, I mean, he would have completely like won the night. You know? Like they might have gave him 2 Oscars. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
here's another one for not slapping him or whatever. But I thought that would have been the the most controlled emotional response that he could have given. I personally didn't think the joke warranted that emotional of a response. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? I like that, and so people are psychoanalyzing Will Smith and Chris Rock and all of that good stuff. I won't get into that, but I just was like, ooh, that's that was a bit much for the joke that he told. So that's just
Yeah, you could tell
my
it wasn't
opinion.
scripted, right? He kind of just threw that one in there, like, oh, okay, let me say this real quick, because he was panning around the audience, right? So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it was. I don't think it was approved by the Oscars for him to say that. That's what I'll say. I don't think that they knew that he was going to say that. But if it was staged, then he did a good job pulling it off because it looked like it wasn't real. It didn't look like this was something that was planned for him to say because he kind of slid it in there. Like if I was watching it, which I wasn't, if I was watching it in real time, I probably wouldn't even have caught it because it was so quick and it was just such a short joke. But yeah, it was impactful for them. So everybody's talking about it. They getting publicity.
Yeah, they all gonna get paid off of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just like it is what it is. Let me ask you this: how do you want the world to remember you?
Oh, wow. That's an interesting question. First of all, as a loving person, I love people, all shapes, sizes, shades, colors, nationalities, genders, disabilities, all of those things. And just being an advocate for women in general, all women. We are marginalized in this country by so many different things. There are, you know, our pay. That's first and foremost. Every single job that I have ever had was a struggle, right? So even when I had female managers, it was rough. It was a lot. So I had to fight for all of these things. So I want women to keep pursuing their dreams. If that way that you're trying to is not working, create a whole new way. You don't have to conform to what society wants you to do. Do it your own way. So I want people to just remember me as this person who appreciates authenticity, stands up for things that are right for people, and specifically advocating for women because our healthcare matters. Like we bring life into this world, right? That is like the highest honor from God that you can get. So why not spend that extra time and actually just look into your health? Make sure you're living a way that is conducive to what you want your life to be. If your environment doesn't work, I know sometimes it's hard to get out of environments. Try everything you can to make the little changes that you can to make your environment more homely, comfortable, all of those things. And I just want to be remembered as like a great mother and a great sister, and just a great person, just a person that other people want to be around. So I do tell people all the time, if you don't like being by yourself, then why would anybody else want to be around you, right? If you can't sit in a room
Mm-hmm.
or in a house by yourself and not go crazy or gotta leave or gotta invite somebody over, you gotta really look and say, okay, well, what is going on with me where I feel like I need to have people around me all the time? Because if you don't really like being around yourself, it's a big possibility that some of the people that's around you probably don't enjoy being around you the way they probably need to, because they can feel what you're feeling about yourself. So I think that all of that is super important. I love myself. I want every woman to love themselves, every person. Unfortunately, we live in a world where it's harder to do that with these standards that are placed. Every woman's supposed to look the same, and your hair is supposed to be like this, and your body shape is supposed to be this, and you got to get this type of surgery, or your eyes got to be this color, and all of those things. Those are not things that I would ever want my niece to take as the word or the thought of what she's supposed to look like. She is supposed to look like exactly what God made her to look like, whether that be big, small, skinny, light, dark, whatever.
I agree with that. I watched a clip. I forget whose page it was earlier. It was like a panel, and one of the guys, he was basically saying, these women that get like these super duper plastic surgeries and stuff like that.
The
He was like, if you
BBLs and
realize
all
that,
of that stuff.
yeah, he was saying, he was like, if you look at wives, it's like wives don't look like that. He's like,
So do you want to be the wife or do you want to be the other?
Yeah, he's like, you can look like that, but most of y'all who look like that aren't wives. So that's something to think about. The Real Pressure said, what are your thoughts about Will Smith using that as an opportunity to let the world know that he's tired of people attacking his wife and marriage?
When you are in a public limelight the way they are, and they have volunteered to put themselves out there, right? So we know people have been making accusations about their relationship for decades, and nobody knew
Mm-hmm.
the real truth, right? It was like, oh, I think they swingers, I think they do threesomes, I think they got boyfriends and girlfriends on the side, and their kids are weird, and blah 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 blah, all of those things, right? They chose to open up their lives to the world when his wife decided to do the Red Table Talk, when he decided to film his YouTube special where he was writing his book and trying to lose the weight at the same time. Those things are very vulnerable moments. So do I think they should put themselves out there like that? If you are ready for what comes with that, absolutely. Because out of all of this craziness, they're helping somebody, right? Somebody needed to hear whatever it was that they said so they could get the help that they needed to be able to move forward in their lives. But you do have to realize you are going to be under scrutiny. I think Will said that in his speech. He was like, yeah, when you are in this arena, people feel like it's okay for them to just say whatever to you. You have to be the
Mm-hmm.
bigger person. And not saying you won't have a bad day, because Will could have just had a bad day that day. And that was the thing that
Mm-hmm.
tipped him over the edge. We already know him and his wife have had issues with the Oscars in general in the past, which is why some of this stuff is happening, right?
Right.
There are clips of Chris Rock talking about Jada boycotting the Oscars and making fun of it and things like that. So I do think that
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things where um, it's not right, but people have opinions. And the way our world is so open, like literally you can get on social media and just contact anybody now, right?
Mm-hmm.
25, 30 years ago, you couldn't do that. You couldn't be like, oh, I want to DM Will Smith. It's like, no, that's not an option. You would never get that close to Will Smith. Now people feel like they know people that they don't know. So they're going to say whatever they want to say. And even some of the people who do know you, like Chris Rock, they feel like it's okay for them to say it because they do know you. So I don't think it makes it right, but you have to be very cognizant of what comes with all of these things. Sometimes you can't avoid it. Sometimes you can't be prepared for it because we can't be prepared for everything. But you do have to kind of look at what you're doing before you put it out there and how people are going to react to it, if that's important to you. Some people, they like, I don't care. I'm going to do me regardless. They could say whatever. I'm just going to not look at these comments and I'm going to keep living my best life. And that's fine. But we could see for him, he is going through a lot of emotional things. You can see that just from him going through this process of writing his book. So it could be things that are just piling on. So if it wasn't Chris Rock, somebody else was probably going to catch it.
Yeah, I think Chris Rock caught the reaction that Will has wanted to give the public probably since Tupac. You know what I'm
Probably.
saying?
That's the
And
other
it
thing
was,
that can resurface, right?
I mean, because they've been together for a long time. You know what I'm
A
saying?
very
And like you
long
said, it's very
time.
public. So we are like, if I know, like you said, I don't know either one of y'all, right? But I know,
Hmm.
I know enough about your marriage to say something to you that I know is factual and could hurt your feelings.
Right.
So that makes you vulnerable to pretty much everybody. And you're not a B-lister, dog. Like you that guy.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
in response to my comment about the bodies and being married,
I was
Melissa
about to
said, but
say
not
something
everybody
about that.
aspires to be a wife. Um, well,
That
I
is
think
true.
I yeah, I mean, I think one thing I have a general principle that you never speak in absolutes, but in generalities, right?
Hmm.
I think most women want to be wives. I think most people want to be in a healthy relationship. So that's why I put
Hmm.
it the way that I put it.
Yeah, and I don't think it's
Um,
anything wrong with a person wanting to enhance their body.
hmm
Some people get procedures done for other reasons, and it just
hmm
happens to enhance their body. Others they choose to elect that. That's fine. That's your personal choice to be able to do that. But just like what we talked about with Will Smith, right? If you choose to do that, you have to be ready for all of the stuff that comes with it. You have to, if you're not fully vetting out this person that's doing this surgery on you, you know that it's probably going to be some other stuff going on, or it's
Right.
going to come back a couple years over. I lived in Georgia for a little bit, and the lady that I lived with, she had breast implants, and at the time I didn't even know because she like it just fit her body naturally, so I didn't think that she had implants. But she shared that with me that she had implants, but it came up because she was like, "Oh yeah, I've had these for like over 10 years, so now I have to go back and get them redone." And I was like, "Whoa, hold on." So like, you have to keep doing this like every 15 years. And she's like, yes. So that's another piece that I think a lot of people don't think about. Once you get one surgery, it's normally not just one surgery. It's normally some upkeep involved with that. Even if you keep your body up, there's still things. If you have a foreign object in your body, you're going to have to get it taken out. They'll want to put in whatever the newest thing they're doing. They want to check and make sure nothing's leaking, falling apart, moving around, all of those things. So I do think that just like with putting your life out there on the internet, you have to be ready for all of the attention and everything else that comes with having your body altered. So if you don't like a whole lot of attention from men or women, then if you go and get a body that looks like, you know, Kim Kardashian or whoever else people are following that they just love the way they look, then that's going to be a problem for you. Because literally every time you get out of your car, it doesn't matter if you're pumping gas, throwing something in the trash, walking in your house, whatever, you're going to get some unwanted attention. And you may not be getting the attention from the people that you thought you were going to attract. So I think that those are things that people actually have to think about. If it's just you want to get it done because it's going to make you feel better, you feel like you're going to look amazing when you look in the mirror and it's going to make your day better every day, by all means, do what you feel like you need to do. But I'm a very strong advocate for doing research on any and everything you do to your body and that you put inside of your body. Because a lot of stuff that we use in our everyday lives is not safe for us. I drink a lot of tea. All tea is not healthy. All tea bags are not the same. Some tea bags are made out of plastic. I don't want to drink plastic. I'm trying not to put any chemicals in my body. So plastic is one of the things that is most harmful to us. So I definitely don't want to put that in my body.
Sammy Stu said women could literally wear a garbage bag and still get unwanted attention.
I agree.
That's true. That's true. But if you put a woman in a garbage bag next to the one with the BBL, the one with the BBL is getting substantially more attention than the one in the garbage bag.
Maybe. So I think they might both get attention, but it depends on what type of person is looking for that.
I'm telling you, I'm a guy. If you put them right next to one another, they're going to clown the garbage bag. They might not even see the garbage bag.
You're right. They might not.
So it's like, yo, was it a chick there with the garbage bag on? You know?
They might not. And I do think that's a situation where even if they're not interested in the chick with the body alterations, they're still going to look. They're still going to be like, oh, okay.
Well, I mean, she's cute in a garbage bag, then, hey, that could work too.
Yeah. Long as they not trying to put the bag on her head. Like.
Oh, no. But I'm thinking in terms of, to me, the garbage bag is really just like an extreme. It's like, I get the point though, because you could get the female at 7-Eleven at 10 o'clock at night with the scarf on and the sweatpants and the big hoodie, and the dudes will still be like,
yep, that has definitely been me.
yeah.
Definitely. So yeah, it depends on what people are attracted to.
Right. So, top 5 dead or alive. You got to tell me 5 people, dead or alive, real or fictional, that you would like to sit down and have a one-on-one intimate conversation with.
Ooh, my grandmother. She passed when my mom was 10. So I would love to be able to pick her brain and see how life was for her. I feel like I have a lot of attributes from her based on things that I've heard. She was a very loving and caring woman, but she was also very driven. And she took care of her family while being driven. So I do think she would be on my list. Let's see. Who else? You said dead or alive, right?
Dead or alive, real or fictional?
I don't know. So I'm watching Bridgerton right now. So I would like to meet the queen because I feel like her character is pretty awesome. She makes the show.
You say you're watching what right now?
Bridgerton.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
It's an English show. Back in the day when they would have these big balls and everything when the women would come out. And the queen is black and she is full of personality in the craziest way. So definitely would want to meet her. Possibly the Obamas. Doesn't matter which one. Would definitely want to pick their brains.
Either one.
Maybe Mother Teresa. And
that's a good one.
Let me think. Who else? I don't know. I would have to say probably one of my Indian ancestors, because I want to know what
Mm,
what the world was like for them. Our history is very skewed when it comes to
mm,
Black people in America and the term African American. So I would really like to know what that whole process was for them, because they were just as much slaves as what Black people or African American people are considered as slaves.
mm. Yeah, I saw you do the air quotes. You don't like the term?
So no, it's not that I don't necessarily like the term. I just don't agree with how the term was derived. So I just consider myself American. I'm American. This is where I was born. This is what I know. This is where I grew up at. My legacy from several generations back. This is what it has been. I've done those DNA tests where they tell you where you're really from and all of that. And, the percentage of what I have that's African is smaller than the percentage of what I have that's Irish and Scottish. Because I know my slave owner from back in the day was a white man from those countries. And
Mm,
I have Irish and Scottish blood in me, in addition to, all of the things that make a Black person Black. But I also have Indian on both sides of my family. So it's just one of those things where it's just like, I don't know that others should determine what we call ourselves, because we've gone from being colored to African American to now Black to people of color to all of these things instead of just being people.
right. And if you ask a kid, they'll be like, "You're not black, you're brown."
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh,
They
and
get it,
my
right?
sisters used to call me vanilla and caramel when I was younger, and all of those things, or you're cinnamon, or you're this. We don't really refer to ourselves when we're talking to like family and friends in that way, because we just joke around. And I think
Hmm.
that's pretty common. Like, I'm sure everybody has that person in a family that their nickname was what they thought their name was until they got older and somebody said their real name. They're like, "Who are you talking about?" And they're talking about Pookie over there, or Lil Boo, or whoever. And you're like, "That's their name."
Right.
So I think that just is common in our communities. But yeah, I do think that there's a lot to be discovered there. And for some people, it's top of mind. They want to know because they want to know their heritage. They want to know where they came from. For others, it's not as big of a deal. I'm one of those people that I feel like the nationalities shouldn't be a factor, like your race, when you fill out applications and do all of these other things. I don't even think that should be on there. I think for statistical reasons, it's important to find out where in our country, people are being marginalized and not getting the resources they need. But other than that, I don't see really a purpose in that. If I'm going out for a job interview or trying to get some assistance, what difference does it make what my skin looks like? Does it really make a difference that I'm a woman versus a man? Depending on what some jobs are. Some jobs you do have to have some certain, things. Like if you're a pilot, you gotta have 20/20 vision. That makes sense. You can't wear glasses and be a pilot. You gotta have perfect vision. Makes sense.
Is
Now
that the runway?
if I'm over here just trying to work on this computer or drive this truck, what difference does it make if I'm a woman, a man, Black, white, young, old? None of that stuff makes a difference.
Okay, so are you against affirmative action?
No.
Okay, so if race or uh, gender or any of the other things shouldn't
Hmm.
be on there, and
All of the protected classes. Yep.
yeah, all of the because yeah, because I'm not about to run through it. But essentially, that's what affirmative action kind of ensures. And I like to think of it in terms of college because like
Hmm.
everybody has, everyone's pretty much represented in college in some way, shape, or fashion. And that's something that I'm kind of up in the air about because I
Hmm.
agree with you. I'm like, why should race matter? But I also get it, like because because it matters.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it
You know
doesn't
what I'm
matter.
saying?
It absolutely matters. What I'm saying is that we should be at a point where it doesn't matter. It should be
Hmm.
everybody has what they need to live their best life, but we're not there yet. So we do have all of these things in place to be able to measure things, because that's the only way you can make any progress, right? You have to know what's going on. You have to know, for one, that there's a problem. You need to know how big the problem is, and you need to know the source of the problem to be able to fix it. If
Hmm.
nobody's advocating for those things, then there's no change. You'll get a population where one side is thriving and living their best lives and they have no idea what's going on with the other side. And the other side is over there just struggling, dying, sick, all of those things. So I do think it's important to have these classifications. I just wish that we were in a place where it didn't matter. Because if
Mm.
you're qualified to do a job, or if you're human and you need health care, you should have health care, right? Every person needs a means to be able to care for themselves. Everybody deserves to have clean water, good food, be able to provide for their family. Those are just basic needs that everyone needs. It shouldn't matter if you are white, black, Spanish, have a handicap, or whatever. None of that stuff should make a difference when it comes to having your basic needs.
Have you ever read the book? I don't remember the author, forgive me, but it's called The Case Against Single Payer.
No, I've never heard of that one. And I'm an avid reader, so I'm going to read it now since you said something about it.
Yeah, read it. And I can't retain the statistics and all that 'cause I read a lot of books and stuff like that. But what he does is he kind of explains the potential negative outcomes to have it if we were to go to, say, single payer. So,
Mm-hmm.
and if you want to, before you read the book, if you look up Ben Shapiro, if you go to YouTube and put in like Ben Shapiro healthcare, he'll kind of break it down in like 2 or 3 minutes. He'll break the book down in 2 or 3 minutes in his viewpoint, and you kind of get an idea of what the guy's going to talk about in the book.
Okay.
So it's one of those things that I think is because like I look at it like, yeah, like healthcare for everybody, that'd be cool. But I always play devil's advocate with my own beliefs. So I like to look at the opposite and be like, well, damn, I didn't think of this. I didn't think of that. That's a good point. So you
Mm-hmm.
really just end up being like, okay, well, we got to do something because what we're doing isn't working, right?
Yeah.
But how do we do it, and how do we all come to an agreement to where this is going to be best for everybody involved?
Yeah. And
So,
unfortunately, because there
go
are
ahead.
so many people who can't afford to get the medications they need. Sometimes they get the diagnosis, they know what they have, but they just can't afford the medicines and things like that.
Mhm.
You have these large companies thriving off of, someone else's, just poor situation, poor health situation. And that's not humane in my opinion. But we live in a country that, for one, thrives off of debt. And then two, you have these big corporations that they just want to profit off of whatever they can profit off of. They don't care if it's ethical or not. They just like, if I can make money off of this and get people addicted to it, because the food is definitely addictive, medicine is definitely addictive, then they're going to put it out there and they're going to be like, hey, as long as I'm making money off of it, that's all I care about.
Mm. Yeah, one of the things that I do recall from the book pretty decently, that the guy explains is that if we were to go to single payer, everyone making over, I think it was either 29,000 or 30,000 would have to pay like 50 to 55% in taxes. And that's the question that I always ask people whenever I sit down and have like the healthcare discussion with people or whatever. I'll be like,
Mm-hmm.
would you want to pay 50% of your income in taxes? And people will be like, no, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what the thing when I read the book, I was like, yo, like this is a real live conversation that needs to be
Mm-hmm.
had because, and of course there's other things, you could be like, well, I mean, we just spent X amount, we just sent billions of dollars over there. So
Mm-hmm.
we could just keep that here. If we just gonna print the money, you know what I'm saying? Let's just print it.
Yeah, and we
Renetta
know
says she
that's
moving to
not that
Canada.
simple.
No, it's not that simple. Renetta says she moving to Canada. He talks about Canada in the book, and what he explains is that how would I put this? When you give away something for free, people flock to it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to say, okay, we all have free healthcare, you would have people going to doctors and specialists for basically tying up the system. And what it creates is longer wait time. So what's happening in Canada, according to the book, basically, is that you have the people who can't afford it. Say you need, I don't know, some type of back surgery. You might be waiting 6 to 10 months for this back surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So what those people are doing, they're coming here, getting the
Yep.
back surgery here because they can afford it, and then going back up to Canada. Meanwhile, the other people who can't afford it are just like, oh, my back hurt.
Yeah, I think it works
So,
the other way around too, because I know someone who goes to Mexico to get their dental work done
mm-hmm.
because it's cheaper to
Yep.
just, book that flight, maybe book one night, in a hotel and get the surgery done or whatever they need done, and then just come right back. So I do think that that's a big piece. A lot of women leave the country to have their babies because it's cheaper and the healthcare is
Mm-hmm.
better. Black women are I think we're the largest population that has the most complications and fatalities when we give birth. And a lot of it is
Mm-hmm.
because of the treatment we receive when we're in hospitals, and, our opinions and our thoughts are not taken seriously. So if a woman is in there and she's like, something doesn't feel right, or, X, Y, and Z is going on after birth, they're like, oh, you're fine. And they send you home anyway. So if you don't, react in a different way, then you could potentially pass away, or you could, after you have your baby, or you could pass away actually trying to give birth to that child. So there are a lot of women who leave the country if they have the means to do so, and they have their babies in other countries for those reasons. The healthcare is better and it's cheaper, and they just pay in cash instead of trying to go through, their insurance in the United States. So I think those are all great points that people have to consider. Anytime you get something for free, there is a lot of other stuff that comes along with it. But I do think universal health care should be available to everyone. Some people say, part of that is part of population control also. But
Oh, there's an
you have
agenda
to,
going on.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But this is why we have to look at ourselves, right? And think about
Mm-hmm.
the things that are most important to us, because most people will say, I don't have enough money to do this, and I don't have enough money to do that, or I can't fit that into my budget. Some people don't even have a budget, right? And there are legitimately people who just don't have it. And that is what it
Mm-hmm.
is, right? They're either not working or they're not making even enough to make their bills. But then you have the others who are living a normal lifestyle, but they just don't want to sacrifice, right? So they
Mm-hmm.
would rather have the conveniences of all of the app, the Netflix, the this, the that, and the third. Eat out as much as they want. Drive the luxury car, pay the crazy amount in rent. Stimulus checks, yeah. So I can say some stimulus checks. All of that stuff. Instead of thinking about the health things that they need, so that they can
Mm-hmm.
actually have a more enjoyable life, we tend to opt for the conveniences. And then we get to the point where, what you brought up with, okay, if you had to pay 50% of your income to, this healthcare situation or whatever it is, you're like, I'm not doing that until you need it. And then you're like, I wish I had. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying it should be either way, because I know I would
Right.
probably have a problem if I was working for 50% of my pay to go
Right.
towards healthcare alone. And if I'm paying the same amount that somebody who has 6 kids is paying, that don't feel right to me. But at the same time, if our world was one where everybody had all the other things they needed and you still brought enough money home, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal, because you would be used to it. You would be born into that system, and you would be like, I don't have to worry about going to the doctors. I can just go. And I know I'm going to get quality health care, and I can get the medicines I need, and I'm going to thrive on my job because now I'm healthier, versus taking sick days because you know something's wrong with you, but you don't want to go to the doctors, and you would rather just lay in bed and hope that it goes away.
Yeah, I think so. Like some of the European countries have it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think one of the things that is the gift and the curse of America is the diversity, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in these European countries, maybe was it like Sweden, Switzerland, and Norway,
Yep.
um, they're kind of like a small homogenous group. So it's easier for them to have a lot of the similar viewpoints and beliefs and stuff like that. I think that in America, because you have just a mixing bowl of everybody here, and everyone has their own desires, thoughts, emotions, opinions, political affiliations, and all of that, it's a lot more difficult to get 330 million people on the same page, especially when it comes to their money. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
it's just gonna be more difficult. My wife said, "Yep, it happened to me." Um, I don't really want to tell her story because I don't want to mess it up, but I will tell you the when Libby was born, we went to the hospital. They sent us home, and then a couple hours later, she went into labor. Right. So she
Mm-hmm.
she she thought she was in labor. We went to the hospital. They sent her home. She ended up going to see. We took her to her OB, and then sent her
Mm-hmm.
back to the hospital. And then Libby was born. When Finn was born, we went to the same hospital, and they were like, "We don't think you're ready." And we were like, "Well, that's fine. We're not leaving. We'll be right out here in the car in the waiting room because we know how this
Mm-hmm.
goes." You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? And lo and
Mm-hmm.
behold, they ended up calling a doctor and stuff like that, and Finn was here, a few hours later. So yeah, I can attest to that. I witnessed that with my own two eyes, with my own being.
Yeah, and it's
But
a lot
I
of
gotta get
times
her on the show
they
to
don't
tell the
trust us.
story.
Yeah, they
Exactly.
don't trust that we know our bodies. I have a friend. She was having her first child. She went to the hospital, told them, "Look, I need an epidural." They told her, "This your first child. You got time." And now I'm sure you know because you've had kids. When you get to the hospital, you only got a certain amount of time. It's a little window when you can get any drugs, right? Once that window
Mm-hmm.
is gone, that's it. You having a baby,
Right.
however it's going to come out. But
Right.
there's also a bunch of other people having babies when you having a baby, and it's normally
Mm-hmm.
one anesthesiologist. So
Yep.
depending on how many people they got in front of you, they still might not make it to you. So my friend ended up having her child naturally, and she, I think, is still angry about that to this day because that wasn't her plan, right? She was like, "No, I'm gonna get the
Mm-hmm.
drugs. I want to have a whatever her version of a good birthing experience was." So I think that the more stinging part is that they didn't listen to her. She's like, "My body is
Mm-hmm.
going through something right now. I'm telling you what I need, and you're telling me no, and you're telling me no, it's not time, and no, what you're feeling is not this." And you can wait a little bit longer. And her son was born literally like an hour or two after she told him she needed that epidural. She hadn't been there that long. And they just assumed because it was her first kid that, oh, this was going to be like a, 24 to 48-hour process. And it was literally like 4 to 6 hours. So that's one of those things where you have to be in tune with your body and you do have to speak up. Sometimes it doesn't work. Like in her case, that's a very stressful situation to try to argue with somebody in or try to get another doctor or whatever it is. There's only one anesthesiologist. So even if they told her that she could get it, she would have still been at the back of that list. So all of those things make a big difference. I personally preferred to have my children naturally. That was my plan. But that's not something that you can fully plan for. Things happen. Your pain level changes as your body changes and you grow and you age and all of that. And then sometimes there are complications where your birth plan is just thrown out the window completely. You got to do something totally different. But that's a part of why I think it's so important for people to, for one, pay attention to your body, write these things down, have conversations with your doctors. If they are not giving you what you need, find another doctor. There are tons of doctors out here, like you stated before, they all want our money. You just got to
Mm-hmm.
keep trying. You're going to find that one that's going to seriously, pay attention, hone in, ask the right questions, give you specific things to do when you return back home and want you to come back so they can actually see if you did those things.
Cool. Got it. I'm looking forward to watching this on the replay. I always give you asked the question already, but I give you another opportunity because I give everybody a chance at the end to ask me a question. So if you have a question for me, this is your moment to pick my brain a little bit.
Okay. So I love that you and your wife are doing couples counseling or therapy. So what do you think it will take for more Black men to go to therapy?
Uh, to be honest, I just think it's a matter of Black men who are willing to go to therapy and know the benefits of it, putting it out there for the public. I mean, you know, um, I, as a kid and on into adulthood, have understood that other people's opinion only matter a little bit. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of okay with someone thinking, oh, he goes to therapy, he saw if he has a therapist, or he goes to couple counseling, whatever. I don't particularly care what other people think. But knowing the benefits of it, knowing what it really is, I think that it's easy for people to. A lot of our viewpoints are based on what we saw on TV, right? So they
Mm-hmm.
think you go in and you lay on this couch and some people might not want to talk about their childhood, right? They might want to just talk
Mm-hmm.
about right now. Well, you can go to your therapist and be like, look, to be honest with you, I don't really want to talk about my childhood. And if you got a good therapist, they'll be like, okay, well, we'll stay away from it as much as possible, as long as we can get you to where you need to go to. So I think it's just a matter
Mm-hmm.
of us putting it out there, being honest about it. I've actually thought about doing an live with my therapist as our session one day, just so people can kind of see like this is what
What the real
happened.
situation
This
is.
is what the
Mm-hmm.
real situation is. And I mean, if you think, like you say, I think everybody I think all humans need it. All humans and dogs probably need therapy, you know, because they live so close to us. You know what I'm saying?
They
We're like the
do.
only animals who have gotten that human aspect to them where they get like real bad anxiety just because they're born
And
with
they
it,
get
right?
ailments
So
just like we do. Like they get
yeah,
diabetes and cancer and all of those things.
yeah. So I think it's just a matter of putting it out in the public. I think it would be cool if they had like a marketing campaign to get black men in therapy, um, and follow people like me.
Awesome.
You know,
Love it.
who say this cool. So yeah, that's it. I appreciate you sitting down with me. I'm so looking forward to watching the replay and trying to memorize everything that you said here. Um, you said a lot, you know what I'm saying? You gave us a lot. We went from the vitamins and the whole all the way down to therapy. So it's been real. I appreciate you sitting down with me. Um, if you need me, you know where to find me. Hit me up anytime.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. One quick point to shine a light on myself. I am revamping my website, so there's more information for women or anyone to find ways to get the help that they need and to support those in their lives who may need that help. So my website is imdchristia.com. It is also the same as my IG handle, so imdchristia, and I will be sharing my journey and providing resources because I do want to be able to put this out there to the world and hopefully help somebody get to a diagnosis or a better lifestyle quicker than it took for me to get to this point, because I'm still on my journey. Like, I'm just starting with the food. I still have to go through my cosmetics, my cleaning products, my pots and pans and all of that stuff, and make sure everything in my house is something that's going to uplift my body versus taking away from it. So please check me out, and thank you so much for having me. This was an awesome conversation. I think you have a great platform.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And if I had thought about it, I owe you an apology. I knew you had a website. I didn't recall that you had a website. Normally, I pin it in the comments, but for the YouTube edit, it'll be there. It'll be in the box below, and I'll put it at the beginning of the interview so that anybody can go get the resources from the HR lady.
Okay.
All right, cool. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Peace out, y'all. Y'all be good.
Have a good night, everyone.